Restoration Shaman is all about using the elements and the power of water to heal our allies. I'm going to show you everything you need to know here, while also keeping it very beginner-friendly and accessible. We're going to start off with the stats and the stat priority. Looking at here, then, we've got our priority stat, which is intellect. The more intellect we have, the more power and more healing our spells are going to do. This basically is going to come from a higher and higher eye level of gear. Now, I will put the stat priority on the screen here for you. That is a general guide to which stats you should be looking for on gear, but always prioritize a higher eye level and therefore more intellect, and you're going to be absolutely fine. So we have the main secondary stats then after our main stat, which is intellect. Critical strike means we've got a chance for extra effectiveness on attacks and heals. Then we have versatility. This is actually going to increase our damage done and increase our healing done, while also slightly reducing our damage taken. It's a really great all-around stat. Then we have mastery, and for us restoration shamans, this is going to increase the healing from our spells by up to X amount, based on the current health of our target, where lower health targets are healed for more. Haste is going to increase our attack speed and spell casting speed. So like if we're casting this healing wave here, it's going to be cast a lot quicker if we have a lot more haste. Quickly looking at the tier set that we're getting in Season 1 for The War Within, we are getting the Waves of the Forgotten Reservoir. If you're still new to Restoration Shaman, don't worry, I'm going to be explaining in more detail what these spells do later on in the video. But the set piece this season means that Tidal Waves increases the healing of affected spells, and Tidal Waves is more effective and reduces the mana cost of affected spells. And that is what our rotation is going to be formed around in this guide. Again, if you are a beginner, don't worry too much if you don't understand that. We're going to be going through it all shortly. So now we're going to go through the utilities and sort of defensives, etc., that you can use as a shaman in, Season 1, Patch 11 of The War Within. Now, the ones I am showing you here, these are the most important utilities. That's not to say that it's a comprehensive list. There are more to use. These are the ones you'll be using the most and are most important, however. So what I would suggest that if you're a beginner or veteran alike, then you should just go through your spellbook and the left side of your talent tree, the shaman class talents, once you're really comfortable with your rotation, etc., and just see what else you have available. But generally, these ones are the main ones that you need to know about. So let's jump into it. First up on the left, we've got Thunderstorm. Call down a bolt of lightning, as you can see here, causing a thunderstorm. It's going to deal amount of damage to everyone in a 10-yard radius. What the main thing it's going to do, though, is not the damage, but it's actually going to knock them away from you and then also slow them by 50%, and you can use it while stunned. So a great way of doing a bit of damage, knocking your enemies back and then slowing them down and getting them away from you. Water walking here, you can put on you or any allies, and quite simply, you can then walk on water, but damage will cancel that effect. This could be really useful whenever really you need to walk on water, which could be in raids, dungeons, or the open world, or battlegrounds. It really could be in any situation here. Wind shear, this is a really, really important one on a 12-second cooldown. This is your interrupt or kick. If you hear someone saying the word kick, that just means interrupt. It's how we're going to interrupt our enemies' spellcasting. Literally, like imagine I'm casting Lightning Bolt, I could interrupt that and the spell would not go off, it's interrupted. And I really want to hit home here how important using this is a lot in PvP, in Mythic Plus, sometimes in raiding. Veterans and beginners alike really overlook the importance. It can be make or break, especially in higher Mythic Plus keys, for example, whether you win or lose, to have you interrupted a certain spell. And interrupting as a group is so important. Hexing is another really interesting one. You're going to transform the victim into a frog and incapacitate them for an entire minute, but it does only work on beasts and humanoids. One of my favourite spells in the whole game, Ghost Wolf. We can use it without a cooldown, whenever the hell we like, indoors and outdoors. We can turn into a Ghost Wolf, as you can see here. And this is going to increase our movement speed by a whopping 40%. So you can use this on boss fights, in combat, inside. You know, you can use this in so many situations to speed up getting out of something, or getting from A to B in a certain boss fight, or just getting from A to B after a wipe. There are so many useful things for this, and it is honestly absolutely amazing. On the right then, we've got Nature Swiftness on a 1 minute cooldown. The next healing or damaging nature spell you cast is instant cast and costs no mana. So if I cost like my lightning bolt, you can see it's instant rather than having to actually cast the entire spell like we have here. Then we've got a big defensive Earth Elemental, as you can see it here. Calls forth a greater Earth Elemental to protect you and your allies for 1.2 minutes. While this elemental is active, and this is my favourite thing about the ability, your maximum health is increased by 15%. So you can actually use this, like if you know the boss is going to do a big, huge attack on you and it might kill you, well, we can use this Earth Elemental to actually add more to our health, therefore lessening the chance that will happen. We've got Spirit Walk here, again on a 1 minute cooldown, removing all movement impairing effects and increasing your movement speed by 60% for 8 seconds. Another great cooldown there. If something, you know, sticks us in the mud, if you will, we can get out and then really speed up. And lastly, this is completely new to the War Within for Shamans, we get Sky Fury. Harness the Fury of the Wind Lord to grant a target ally 2% mastery, the stat that we spoke about earlier, and empower their auto attacks to have a 20% chance to instantly strike again for an hour. If the target is in your party or raid, it will do it to everyone. This is a new group and raid-wide buff that we now get as Shamans, which is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I'm so glad they've added this in. The last one I want to talk about, which you may be aware of, is Bloodlust. Increasing the haste of all party and raid members by 30% for 40 seconds. And this is on a 10 minute cooldown. And you can see here, like my lightning bolts are now a lot faster. Everything is going to be a lot faster. This is generally known as the biggest cooldown in the game. If you're a beginner, you may not be aware of it. Shamans have it, Evokers have it, Hunters have it, Mages have it, and you will all share that cooldown. If one of you uses it, the others will be on cooldown as well. So you're generally going to use this when your raid leader or group leader tells you, or just ask them, when would you like me to use it? Because this is like the biggest cooldown that literally is in the game. It is huge, absolutely huge. And that is all of the main utilities and kind of defensives I think you need to be aware of in the War Within as a Shaman. Again, do look through the spellbook when you are, you know, more familiar with the spec. You know, we've got a lot of totems that we can use, like Windrush Totem's a good one. Let me just show you that one. You know, we've got loads of totems, like we can place this one, and when you walk through it, you know, you're partying, you are all sped up. There's things like Spirit Walker's Grace, Totemic Recall, Tremor Totem, Stone Bulwark Totem. The list literally goes on and on and on. There's so many of them, but I don't want to overwhelm you in this. Now let's look at the actual full rotation and healing priority. One thing I do want to say is that we are going to be using different hero talents for both raiding and Mythic Plus, and I will be taking you through these in depth and why shortly when appropriate. But what we're going to look at first is what I like to now call what, when, why. What spells do we have? When should we use them? Why should we use them? So what spells do we have? We've got Chain Heal. It's going to heal multiple people jumping around with water. We usually have a spell called Healing Rain, where you blanket the area in Healing Rain and it heals people. But that's actually replaced with the Totemic hero talents, and that is called Surging Totem, as you can see here. And it also gives us access to another spell called Downpour. A burst of water at the target location that maintains Healing Rain for 24 seconds, healing 30% more than a normal Healing Rain. And that does both replace Healing Rain. When it turns into Downpour, a burst of water at your Healing Rain's location heals up to 5 allies within 12 yards and increases their maximum health. So it's kind of like a super duper Healing Rain. We then have Riptide, a restorative water, washes over a friendly target, healing them, and an additional amount over a long time. In this case, it's 18 seconds. We do have 2 charges of this spell. We have Healing Stream Totem, 2 charges of that. Summoning a totem, as you can see, it's whipping out with water. It's going to be healing people pretty passively. Unleash Life. Unleash elemental forces, healing a friendly target and increasing the effect of your next healing spell. It's going to do different things depending on what healing spell you use it with. Then we have Healing Wave. It's simply going to heal someone. We have Earth Shield, which is going to protect somebody, increasing your healing on them by 20% and also healing them when they take damage. This can only happen every now and then, and there's 9 charges. It can only be placed on the Shaman and one other target at a time. The Shaman can have 2 elemental shields on them. TLDR then, you can place this on yourself and I would say a tank in the raid environment. And you can also put Water Shield on yourself as well, helping you restore some mana. These here are more of our cooldowns, apart from Tide Caller's Guard actually, and Earth Living Weapon. In fact, really I should move these over here because these are kind of a bit separate. These are more like buffs to you. So Tide Caller's Guard goes on your shield. And this is going to mean for an hour, your healing done is increased and the duration of your healing stream totems are increased. And then on our weapon, we're putting Earth Living totems. This one goes on your shield, this one goes on your weapon. Imbue your weapon with the element of Earth for an hour, where your Riptide, Healing Wave, and other healing spells have a chance to trigger Earth Living on the target, and that's going to heal them over 9 seconds. And then we've spoken about Water Shields. These are your personal buffs that you should be putting on before combat. You can do that with the Earth Shield too. You can put that on before combat. We're going to talk about the cooldowns separately. So we've spoken about the what. Let's now talk about when are we going to use these spells. First up, our number 1 priority is going to be Chain Heal, but only if we have something called High Tide. Well, that is this talent here. Every 1 million mana you spend brings a High Tide, making your next 2 Chain Heals heal for an additional amount and not reduce healing with each jump. Usually, every jump they do to a new target, it reduces how much healing they do. So that's your top priority if you get that proc after you spend 1 million mana. After that, we're going to use our Surging Totem on cooldown. It's really important in the hero talents, etc. And if your allies are injured, we can then go ahead and use Downpour to do that healing on them with that totem. You can see here, my Chain Heal is lit up, and that is because I have High Tide. So you can see when you get High Tide there, which is what I mentioned being the first priority. After that, we're going to use Riptide on cooldown. The reason for that is a talent here, Tidal Waves. Casting Riptide grants 2 stacks of Tidal Wave. Tidal Waves reduce the cast time of your next Healing Wave or Chain Heal, or increase the critical effect of your next Healing Surge by 30%. So it depends really what you're going to be using next. A lot of times in Raid, we're healing multiple people, and that will be Chain Heal. Then we're going to use our Healing Stream Totem. And you can leave 1 up. You don't have to use them both, but just make sure you're not capping charges at 2, so it's wasted. After that, of course, it's going to be Unleash Life, and you can use it every 15 seconds. Now, remember on Unleash Life, it's going to actually impact our next spell. If High Tide is active, use it on your Chain Heal. So if your Chain Heal is glowing from High Tide, use Unleash Life and then use Chain Heal. It's going to do increased healing and bounce to an additional target. So that can symbiotically help each other. Unleash Life meaning Chain Heal is going to do even more healing, and High Tide meaning it is anyway. So it's like a double whammy. Otherwise, I would use it and then use your Surging Totem and Downpour, which is going to be it's affecting 2 additional targets. After that, if we have multiple people missing health, you can just use Chain Heal, whenever. Single target, it's going to be Healing Wave. Make sure you keep up your Earth Shield on both you and the tank. And that's pretty much it for the main priority of healing in raiding for the War Within. So we've got some cooldowns here. Healing Tide Totem, summons a totem at your feet for 10 seconds, pulsing of energy, healing all party and raid members for a massive amount. We've got Ascendance, transform into a Water Ascendant, duplicating all healing you deal at 70% effectiveness and immediately healing for X amount as well. Ascendant healing is distributed evenly among allies, so it's really good at getting some extra passive healing out. And then we have Spirit Link Totem, which is one of my favorites. It's a link at the target location, as you can see in this big circle here, reducing damage taken by everyone inside it. And it'll actually redistribute everyone's health. So if one person goes really low and one person's really high, it'll equal out everyone's health, which is phenomenal. And that is pretty much the main rotation for Restoration Shaman, and he said Druid then, Restoration Shaman, the War Within Season 1 raid healing. So this is the Totemic hero talent choice that we are going to be taking. And this is available to both enhancement and restoration shamans, and they don't change depending on what spec you are in either. They excel at unlocking the full power of their totems, strengthening their totems, and gaining access to new ones. So first up, we get the Surging Totem. Summoning a totem at not a random location, but at the target location that maintains Healing Rain for 24 seconds. Heals to 30% more than a normal Healing Rain, and it will actually completely replace your Healing Rain spell as well. Totemic Rebound. Chain Heal now jumps to a nearby totem within 20 yards once it reaches its maximum targets, causing the totem to cast Chain Heal on an injured ally within 30 yards and then jump to 2 nearby targets. I love this. It's basically extending Chain Heal around. Then we've got 2 choices here, Oversized or Swift Recall totems. Oversized means it increases the size and radius of them and the health of them, just making it easier to, manage our totems, really. Successfully removing a harmful effect of Tremor Totem or Poison Cleansing Totem or controlling an enemy with a Capacitated Totem or Earth Grab Totem reduces the cooldown of that totem by 5 seconds. Basically, if the effect of your totem happens or is actually used, then it's going to reduce the cooldown on that totem. Then we've got Imbuement Mastery, increasing the effectiveness of Earth Living effect on our weapon by 3 seconds. Okay, cool. On the middle, we've got again another option. There's actually quite a lot of options in this hero talent. Amplification Core. While Surging Totem is active, your damage and healing is increased by a little bit. Okay. Or while Ascendance is active, Surging Totem is 150% more effective, which is the one I prefer. Wind Barrier. If you've got a totem active, your totem grants you a shield, absorbing damage every 30 seconds. For 30 seconds, so constantly. Quite a nice defensive there with that one that's going to happen passively. Supportive Imbuements, where you get a new weapon imbue called Tide Caller's Guard. Imbue your shield with the element of water for an hour. Your healing done is increased, and the duration of your healing stream and cloudburst is increased. So that's really just for healing. And then we've got increasing the healing of Surging Totem by 25%. On the right-hand side, your Healing Tide, loads of totems are at 100% increased effect. Cast a free instant chain heal, at 100% effectiveness when you get that totem out. So when you get any of those totems out, boom, quick chain heal. Works really well with the Totemic Rebound talent as well. Reactivity, your healing stream totems now also heal a second ally. And lastly, second to last, we've got Earth Surge and Totemic Coordination. Chain heal from your totems are now more effective, or allies affected by your Earthen Wall totem and a few others receive 10% increased healing from you. I personally like Totemic Coordination here. Then we have Whirling Elements, the last one. Elemental motes orbit around your Surging Totem. Your abilities consume the motes for enhanced effects. It's water. Your next healing wave or healing surge also heals an ally inside your healing rain for 100% effectiveness. Air. Your cast time of your next healing spell is reduced. Earth, your next chain heal applies Earth Living at an increased amount of effect. So TLDR, obviously it's enhancing our totems, but it's also adding some defensive shields. And I would say the main other impact is just that we're going to be chaining more chain heals around from our... Now looking at the Mythic Plus talent, you can see here a fair amount is changing. We are getting another cooldown, which is Cloudburst. We're changing it, should I say. And we're also going into Farseer talents instead, meaning our Healing Rain really is a Healing Rain now and not any crazy other stuff. So it has changed around a bit. The first thing we're going to do is actually cast Ancestral Swiftness on cooldown. As a Farseer, we are going to get Ancestors coming to our side, and they're going to be healing for us as well. Your next healing or damaging spell is instant, costs no mana, and deals 10% increased damage and healing. And this is going to be replacing Nature's Swiftness, and we'll call an Ancestor. After that, use Healing Rain on cooldown, and we do still get Downpour as well, so you can pretty much use that as well if your allies are injured, but don't use it just instantly. Do only use it if they need it, of course. Riptide, again, is on cooldown for the same reason with our Tidal Waves. No change there. Again, Cloudburst Totem now is going to be used instead of Healing Wave, and we can put it down and then trigger it. So it summons a totem at your feet for 18 seconds that collects power from all of your healing spells. When the totem expires or dies, the stored power is released. And basically, you can actually do that early. So you get 2 charges of it. Again, don't let it cap. So if I put it down, and then I'm doing, la la la, I'm healing, woo-hoo-hoo, I'm doing all this healing. And then I'm like, right, that's enough. I want to heal all the people. I can then cast it to unleash all of that healing. Otherwise, it will do it when it just expires on its own accord. After that, we're going to use Primordial Wave. Blast your targets with Primordial Wave, healing them and applying Riptide to them, which is that spell here. So Primordial Wave will also apply Riptide. Your next Healing Wave will also hit all targets affected by Riptide. So once you've used Primordial Wave, you do then want to use Healing Wave, as that's going to affect everyone with a Riptide on them. So imagine you've got your 3 Riptides on 3 targets in Mythic Plus, and you've got your other Riptide from your Primordial Wave on a 4th person. When you then use Healing Wave after using Primordial Wave, this will actually affect everyone that has your Riptide on them, as well as the person you cast it on. Again, using Unleash Life, it's also going to unleash some ancestors for you as well. Use this for chain heal if you're doing multiple person healing. Use it for healing and rain pour. Well, I mean, would we? Not really, actually. That would ignore that. I'm like, that's 5 people anyway, right? Yeah. So we're not going to use it for healing, rain, or downpour. Ignore me. But you can use it on your Riptide, Healing Wave, or Healing Surge to do 35% increased healing as well on single target. Same again, use your Earth Shield and your other cooldowns that we've been through before in the same way that I previously spoke about. So for this build, we are going into the Farseer hero talents. It's actually all about summoning the ancestors to help you in combat. And I really do like this as a restoration shaman. So we're starting off with the Keystone talent, which is Call of the Ancients. Benefiting from undulation, calls an ancestor to your side for 6 seconds. Casting Unleash Life, calls one to your side for 12 seconds. And whenever you cast a healing or damaging spell, the ancestor will cast a similar spell, which is a really lovely passive effect. Oh, how kind of them. And going down the left side, I've gone for Ancient Fellowship, where ancestors have a 20% chance to call another when they expire. So let's say after the 12 seconds it expires. Well, it's got a 1 in 5 chance of actually then calling another one for 6 seconds. When an ancestor is called, they reduce the cooldown of Riptide. Lovely. I love to get more Riptides out. Earthen Communion I go for on the next one. Earth Shield has an additional 3 charges and heals you for more. Lovely jubbly. On this one, you can have the ancestors last an additional amount of time. I don't like to go for that one. I like to go for Routine Communion. Riptide has a 15% chance to call an ancestor to your side for 6 seconds. And I think there, where we're using different spells, we've got a higher chance of getting more ancestors out. Primordial Capacity increases your maximum mana, and Tidal Waves can now stack up to 4 times, which I love. Maelstrom Supremacy increases the healing done by a lot of your healing. Cool. Elemental Reverb, Lava Burst gains an additional charge and deals more damage. We're not really going to be using that. Riptide gains an additional charge and heals more. Fantastic. We love more Riptide healing. Using spells of a cast time increases the duration of Spirit Walker's Grace and Spirit Walker's Aegis by a second, up to a maximum of 4 seconds. A bit of a utility one there, pretty much. I'm not sure if I actually went through Spirit Walker's Grace earlier. So I've just put a temporary talent tree to show you. Calls upon the guidance of the spirits for 15 seconds, permitting movement while casting shaman spells. Castable while casting. So it's just a really fantastic movement speed ability there, and that is what this is enhancing. I don't think I told you it before. Well, if I did, then boo-hoo, I guess. And then Ancestral Guidance here. For the next 10 seconds, 10% of your healing done, and 25% of your damage done is converted to healing on nearby allies. Then we've got Final Calling. When an ancestor expires, they cast Hydro Bubble on a nearby injured ally. What does the Hydro Bubble do? Well, it surrounds your target in a protective water bubble. The shield absorbs loads of incoming damage, but the absorb amount decays fully over its duration. I love this. It's playing into the Ancestor fantasy. God, that sounds a bit... oh, my lord. And it's also playing into the, obviously, water healing that shamans do. We don't really have any absorbs, so I really, 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 really love this one. So it's basically going to cast an absorb shield on your ally when any ancestors expire. Lastly, we have Ancestral Swiftness. Your next healing or damaging spell is instant, costs no mana, and deals 10% increased damage and healing. If you know Nature's Swiftness, which of course we do, it is replaced by Ancestral Swiftness and causes Ancestral Swiftness to call an ancestor to your side. So we can get an instant spell out on cooldown, on a pretty quick cooldown, and also now call an ancestor when we do it. I am obsessed with this hero talent tree. I think it is so much better than other classes, and I do every single spec. Check them out on my channel if you haven't. Honestly, my favorite healer is usually Restoration Druid, and I really actually my main Resto Shaman just because of how good Farseer is, and I love it. But anyway, that is Farseer. So you've got, some protective bubbles there. It's enhancing some utility, adding healing, and mainly adding in ancestors who are going to reciprocate our healing on our allies. Looking at the consumables we're going to be using in the War Within Season 1 in patch 11.0, a few things have changed. The vault, obviously, what we get out of it is changing, including how we get sockets on our gear. So for extra sockets from your weekly vault, we're using Nerubian gem weavers now on the helm, wrist, and belt. And the way we actually socket our jewelry is changing. Before you could have 3 sockets on a neck. Now you can add 2 on a neck, or have 2 on a neck, should I say, 2 on a ring and 2 on your other ring. So for the actual enchants, we're going with Winged Grace on the cloak. It's giving you avoidance and it's reducing full damage taken. Crystalline Radiance on the chest is primary stat. Avoidance again on the wrist. Sunset Spell Thread on the legs, which increases intellect and stamina. Scout's March on the boots is for speed. And then we're adding haste on both of our rings. And then for the weapon, it's Authority of Radiant Power. This is generally more geared towards the Mythic Plus side of things, for the weapon specifically. When you do damage, you have a chance to smite your enemy for a load of damage and increase your primary stat. If you're in raiding, what I would recommend on your weapon, the rest of them are still the same, although I would say maybe crit enchants on your rings, but again, it depends on your stat priorities and what you're going for. But for the weapon, it would be the Authority of Fiery Resolve, where you have a chance when healing to do healing to allies, but also doing fire damage to enemies as well. Then looking at the consumables, we have the Flask of Tempered Swiftness, which gives haste. Feast of the Divine Day is primary stat. Mana Potion, of course. Potion Bomb of Recovery, you can basically throw at your enemies and it's going to heal them. Healing Potion, obviously. Earth Living Weapon is what I spoke about as a Shaman before. But if you don't play with Earth Living, then we can use the Algari Mana Oil. You can't have both of them. We are generally going with Earth Living Weapon as a Shaman. Crystallized Augment Rune is going to give you more intellect as well if you are using Augment Runes. My apologies there. And the Culminating Blasphemite is really interesting. Basically, it's going to give you intellect, and it's also going to up your effect of critical strikes by 0.15% per coloured gem. In other words, if we have an emerald, a ruby, an onyx, and a sapphire, it's going to give us 0.60% increased critical effect. Whereas if we had 4 rubies, it would only give us 0.15. If we had 2 rubies and 2 onyx, so 2 different types, then we get 0.30%. And therefore, you want to have 4 different coloured gems in your gear. Where Deadly Emeralds are going to be the one, if you've got more than 4 sockets, that you are going to go for as a kind of default. But do try and fill out those first 4 sockets of different colours first and foremost. Thank you so much for watching this guide. I hope it was really useful for you in the War Within Season 1, whether it was for Mythic Plus or raiding. If you do have any questions, I'll be happy to help. My Patreon is in the description below, and that is where you can find my LVUI profiles, which I'll show you in a second. And also, I'm putting together a huge macro list for every single spec that's going to be really useful for you in the War Within as well. I am doing all classes and specs for the War Within, so if you are new to the channel, then please do click this playlist here to check out what else I have, which is all of them. There will also be PvP guides on this channel as well for War Within Season 1, so make sure to look out for that. This here is the UI that I was referring to. As you can see, we've got target frames, etc. left and right, and raid frames go in the middle here, and then weak auras in the middle with an action bar down here. Chat is behind where my camera is. Minimap and details, etc. are here on the right. All of the plater profiles, the voodoo, the LVY, etc., details profile has all been made by me. And again, you can get this on my Patreon should you like it.